What is up, everyone? Welcome to the L2R2 PlayStation Podcast. My name is Fonze, and I'm joined, as always, by my bro from another mum, Callum Monroe. Callum, how the heck are you?
Very good. Very excited to get an excuse to shoot the shit about games.
Yeah,
Missed sort of having that reason to sit down and chat about games. So yeah, it'd be nice to have that to look forward to again.
yeah, and I just looked it up. Our last episode was March of 2022, so it's coming around on
Yeah,
almost 2 years later.
yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's scary how quickly time goes now.
Right, right, and stuff has happened since. So we'll
Yeah,
use this first episode to break stuff down. But
yeah.
why don't you condense the last 2 years of your life into 10 seconds? How you been?
Yeah, good. Yeah, still in Brighton, still slaving away down here. So not a huge amount different. As you saw, I've got a dog now who's 7 months
Yep.
old. Um, and but yeah, same old really. Just still playing games, mainly PlayStation games, and sometimes Game Pass because I'm a bit of a cheapskate as well. Anywhere I can play something for free, but mostly PlayStation. I getting those trophies and
Yeah.
enjoying my time with them.
I think in these last 2 years, I've yet to get any more platinum trophies. So, but I've always been terrible at actually acquiring the trophies.
Sorry, 2 seconds. I'm just being given a flamingo, which has a squeaker, so I'll put it up on my desk.
What's your dog's name again?
Tess.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She obviously knows that I'm giving something else attention, so she's all right. She's
Dad, I
gone
have this important
sulk
document
now.
for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you it just reminds me of there's a PS Plus game, Stray with the cats.
Yes.
I booted that up and we put on our, like in our living room on the big screen,
Yeah.
and our two dogs were just like, "What the hell's going on?" You just meowing the whole time. I don't know if you got to boot that up with Tess and have her see it.
I haven't yet. She does like watching TV though. She does enjoy, yeah, especially like nature things, like where she can see other animals. She, yeah, loves that. But yeah, she likes to watch games. Stray, I haven't played in front of her, but she lives with three cats, so
Oh, okay.
um, she'd probably enjoy it. But yeah, she'd probably want to play as well. She likes annoying cats, as well as me and just people. But yeah, no, that's a good shout. I'd like to see how she'd react to that. I can't remember if we tried to get the cats at the time to react to it when I played it,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, try Stray. Also, for some reason, with our dogs on Skyrim, there's the Khajiit cat people,
Oh yeah.
and my dog Lilu just like she thinks there's an
Oh
intruder
really?
from another world, and
That's
she goes nuts.
amazing. Yeah.
They
It's
just try
funny
to.
how they react to it. I mean, I was playing a lot of Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster when we first got her, when she was a really small puppy, and she'd just sit there watching. And when you're in sort of combat, fighting from left to right, she'd be like sort of following it along, which yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, I love it.
That's awesome. Do you guys, when you take off, we like to leave this like YouTube channel that says it's calming for dogs. I don't
Mm,
know if it's real or not, but we'll just put
yeah.
something on for them to listen to.
Yeah, we used to use that for her when we first sort of got her used to sleeping on her own. We'd sort of put it on and it would help loads. But since we've sort of got a bit more lax with what she can do and things, so but we left her alone for the first time actually recently. We went up to Scotland. We went out for like a Christmas Day meal. So we left her at home with my dad's, and we sort of had like a little camera to watch her, but she just slept the whole time. So she found another squeaky toy. Give me that, please. Yeah, she keeps me busy, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
she's lovely. I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nice. Yeah, we got a second one since we last stopped the pod.
Yes.
So we have two now, and the second one, his name is Rune, and he's insane. He's just like a
Yeah.
little devil child, but we grew to love him as well. But it was
Yeah,
it was rough
exactly.
there for like the first week. We are like, what the hell did we do? Because the original one was so calm and chill, and this guy
Yeah.
just comes in just tearing shit up. But we love him now.
Yeah, that's what I'm because she's been so good as well. Um, like she is cheeky, as you'll come to see. Um, but I wouldn't want her to be. too amazing or too bad. But yeah, like you get, and then the problem is she's really good, so it does make me think, oh, I'll get another one.
Right.
But then, yeah, who knows? The next one might be an utter nutter. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, she's fingers crossed so far. I mean, she's getting to that age now where she's gonna start, maturing, and I've had horror stories about that period of time. So I've got to take these kind of nice, calming, times not for granted.
Yeah. Utter nutter or utta nutta, how you
Yes, an
pronounce it.
utter
I'm
nutter,
still
yeah.
in that. That's a good one. I've been missing
She,
my UK dialogue.
yeah.
Nice, Callum. Well, before we get into the games, there was other media and stuff that launched. Any big movies, shows that you got into in the past year? Did you watch
um,
Oppenheimer or Barbie?
Not really. I'm not very good at watching movies and TV shows. I
Mm,
mean, I watch them every now and then, but yeah, I get most of my um, entertainment through games. But I did watch last night Renfield, the new Nicolas Cage film,
ooh, I've been wanting to see that.
which I absolutely loved. I thought it was really, really good. So yeah, that's a very recent one, and probably yeah the biggest film I've seen in a while. But yeah, really, really, really good.
Dang. Okay. So you haven't seen Barbie, Oppenheimer, some of the
I
big that
don't
was like
know,
that
no.
dominated this year.
Yeah, I do need to. I want to watch both of them. It just, and with films like that, it normally takes me to be sort of sat down looking through something, and then I see it and it reminds me I wanted to watch it. It's not often I sort of go out my way to watch movies anymore. But and I did. There was another series recently, The Winter King, which
Hmm.
is a series based on a series by Bernard Cornwell, who wrote The Last Kingdom.
Okay.
So I thought that could be quite good, but it's not very good. I mean, the books are meant to be amazing, but yeah, the series didn't seem very good. So uh, that's the positive and negative of the recent things I've watched.
Gotcha. I see. Well, we're different minds because I'll watch whatever, anything. But then
Yes,
I say
yeah,
that, but also my go-to for some reason, like me and my wife will watch the same TV show, like over and over
exactly,
and over
yeah,
again.
yeah,
Like 30 Rock, The Office, we'll just watch that as
yeah,
our go-to no matter what.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, we like watching sort of like MasterChef and
Mm,
things like that, and it's hilarious. I don't know if you've seen MasterChef before, but um, we watched sort of like the MasterChef USA, which is very much like Hell's Kitchen, funny and dramatic and crazy. But if you watch MasterChef the UK version, it's so much. There's like no animosity or like tension. It's like
yeah.
really calm and nice, and it's just so funny seeing the differences. And then we watched a little bit of because my partner loves all of them. Like she's seen every series of every country. But she was telling me how MasterChef Australia is like super epic. It's like
Okay.
80 episodes or something per series. So yeah, I think that's the kind of stuff that we find ourselves just looping background into is things like Hell's Kitchen, mainly things with Gordon Ramsay,
Yeah.
but cooking things and things like Bar Rescue and that kind of trashy TV is yeah probably what I waste most of my
Yeah.
TV watching minutes on.
Yeah, and see, I'm not a big reality show fan, but there's a show that we saw it on TikTok, and I was like, okay, I got to see if this is legit, real. But it's on HBO, and it's in the UK too. It's called Naked Attraction.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It's wild, and these people are
yeah,
just like butt ass naked, and they have to date, or like they're finding their partner who they'd want to take on a first date. But
yeah,
it's just like they show everything, and it's
yeah,
ridiculous. And somehow it's like I had to keep watching because it's just so crazy.
yeah. Yeah, Naked Attraction is it's been a show that's been around for a while over here, and the sort of channel that it's on has lots of weird things like that. Like we had a
Makes
thing called
sense.
Embarrassing Bodies, which is like a really horrible, explicit thing where you had these like doctors and people would come because they've got like a wart on the inside of their asshole or something, and it'd be like explicit, like zoomed in stuff. So similar, like it's probably like the same producers, like on
Yeah.
the sort of, to be honest, like it's just that thing where it's stuff that you just think I probably shouldn't be watching this, but that's what kind of entices you to watch it.
Right. Oh no, that's incredible. I
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
maybe see that.
There'll
But
be
yeah,
some good
just
YouTube compilations of embarrassing bodies, I'm sure, if you're ever interested.
dang, yeah, I gotta go down that rabbit hole. Nice. Well, Callum, let's get into some of the PlayStation news. It's been a while.
Yes.
We'll jump into first one up. We got let's wrap up 2022 very quickly, but we got in January, PlayStation bought Bungie for $3.6 billion. Bungie also revealed Marathon Revival, their previous property, is coming back. Thoughts on, and we'll get into because Bungie does come up a bit more later on, but thoughts on
Mm.
Bungie being acquired for a bajillion dollars by Sony?
Yeah, I think it's interesting looking at it now, 2 years on, because at the time I think everyone was sort of in agreement it was a good idea. I think Destiny 2 was doing really well, and it was just exciting time, for in terms of Bungie's kind of image. But I think now, looking back in hindsight, it hasn't maybe gone to plan. It sort of seems like since then Bungie have kind of hit a few roadblocks, and Destiny 2's not being as well received with its latest sort of add-ons, and there's been a delay with I forget the name of the sort of last one that's coming, but
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, it just doesn't seem too good at the moment, especially some of the things that have been coming out and with the layoffs. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And Marathon, I think, could be cool. But yeah, I think looking at it now, it's kind of difficult to have those same emotions you probably did at the time in 2022 when it happened.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's tough where, and this also aligns with during this time frame, Sony really focusing on um, games as a service, going forward. And it seems like
Mm.
now, as we fast forward to current time, they've decided to maybe walk that back.
Yeah,
But it was interesting in January they really pulled out the checkbook and paid 3.6 billion. So, which I
mm.
think is the biggest acquisition since as we go to the current time. It's like there hasn't
Yeah,
been a huge acquisition like that from Sony. So that was a big one.
no, yeah, yeah. I don't think it's probably still fresh in their mind the amount of money they probably had to pay for Bungie.
Yeah.
I don't think Sony have that kind of infinite pool of wealth that maybe other companies have. So yeah, it's probably. I'm not sure if we'd see them buy anyone again sort of soon. It'd be cool to see something like that, just purely from like a spectator. Um, but yeah, I think like you said that they haven't really made any moves. Probably still just trying to make some of that money back,
Yeah,
pay
it's
off those
smart.
loans.
Right. No, yeah, it's that's a smart way to go about it. I mean, these acquisitions are, like you said, they're fun for like fans to have that oh shit moment where like, oh my
Yeah,
god, they acquired Apple or whatever. But the reality is, it's like it has to make sense, and there's got to be a reason. And as we'll get
yeah.
into it, it's not
And
maybe.
it's not often, people sort of always say about how PlayStation's purchases have always been really good, and I think it's because generally it will be a studio that PlayStation have worked with, so they kind of know, how they work, and the second party studios, people who make games for them exclusively, but are not owned, like Insomniac. But there wasn't really that connection with Bungie. So you'd only hope that there was a similar amount of, connection behind the scenes before they just went for it. But it's looking maybe like that isn't the case, because it does seem like there's some kind of friction, which I could be wrong about, but just from the outside looking in, there does seem to be some kind of friction there at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Now, Callum, moving on. In March, we got Gran Turismo 7 launched. That was a big one. I didn't play it. I'm not a big racing sim fan, but I don't know if you
Mm.
jumped in.
I didn't know. It's only recently I've been thinking about maybe jumping in. I played Grid Legends quite a lot last year, and that kind of made me think, oh, Gran Turismo 7 is like the big bad news. So I should probably give that a go. But I'm a bit worried it might sort of tempt me to get a VR headset.
Oh yeah, there is a VR mode for
Yeah.
GT7. Yeah, if I'm anything, I'm more a fan of the arcadey stuff. And there was Gran Turismo Sport a few years
Mm,
earlier than that, but it seems like from what I read last, they're removing all that stuff, like all the servers. You can't.
right.
Seems like you don't find it on the
Yeah.
marketplace anymore, so it's kind of a bummer. That would be where I would
Yeah.
go to.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I played a little bit of GT Sport. I know I like Gran Turismo, but I think since 5, I think they've just been getting quite forgettable. But I've heard Seven's very good, and just because it's a PS5 game, it'll be nice to play that next gen Gran Turismo because it's just one of those things you have to do, isn't it? It's like you
Yeah.
get a new PlayStation, you get the first Gran Turismo. It was GT5 on PS3, um, GT Sport on PS4. I think it was GT. Was it GT Sport or Gran Turismo 6?
I
No,
want to say
6 was
sport.
PS3, I think. Yeah, GT Sport, yeah. And then 7 for PS5, which even more so with the haptics and things. I'm very interested to see how it plays. But wait till that price goes down. I think it went on sale recently, but not enough for
Yeah.
me. So I'll just keep waiting.
Yep, I agree. Now, in April of 2022, we had PlayStation acquired Jade Raymond's Haven Studios. Their first game, Fair Games, with a dollar sign as the S, was revealed in May 2023. So this is another acquisition, but it's a completely new studio, and Sony
Mm.
just buys them right up. But Jade Raymond, remind me on her. She's a big entity in the gaming space. I know she comes from, I want to say Assassin's Creed, some other kind of.
Yes, I was going to say Assassin's Creed. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And we've seen a teaser for that game, but no footage. But it seems like it's a live service kind of multiplayer extraction. All these buzzwords.
Mm. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, but maybe this year we'll actually see some gameplay. Now
Yeah.
in June, and we were talking about this before we ended the pod, but in
Mm.
June, PlayStation launched their new PS Plus with the tiered systems, and I have not jumped on in these past couple years because I end up owning the games that I want, so that like the free stuff
Yeah,
just doesn't call out to me.
sure.
But how do you feel about this tiered system now with PS Plus?
Yeah, I think I wasn't really sure how to feel about it. I mainly because at the time I had PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now, and it kind of auto put me into PlayStation Premium. So I haven't paid anything extra. It's just kind of, you know, looked at the subscriptions I already had and given me PlayStation Premium. So I haven't actually paid anything, and I think I'll probably adjust it when it comes to paying. But I've actually benefited a lot from it. I have a lot of games, and I like to buy games as well. But there's a lot of games that because I play so many games, a lot of games I miss, and I always want to go back to. And a lot of these, I keep seeming to find their way to the PlayStation Plus Extra service. So I benefit from it more than maybe I thought I would. But when it comes time to pay again, I'm going to go down to extra because I haven't benefited from the kind of third tier at all. I haven't played any of the classics or anything like that. So I'll definitely bump it down a peg when it comes time to renew.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, I don't play a lot of multiplayer stuff, and I know there's benefits from upgrading to the different tiers, but
Mm.
just something hasn't called out to me. Now
Yeah,
moving
yeah,
on.
it's definitely not. I mean, PlayStation Plus Essentials still get the monthly games. It's just the library you get is for extra is pretty big, and it's just it can be a bit overwhelming, especially if you have Game Pass because they're basically like the same kind of service, bar the day one games. So it's a lot of games at your disposal, which can be a bit crippling.
Now we are. It's coming around 2 years later since they launched this, and there was a lot of hype. This is kind
Mm,
of pegged, at least from fans, as like this is the Game Pass like
yeah.
killer or equivalent. But what interested me at the time was them really focusing on bringing back these like PS1 titles, PS2 titles.
Mm.
I know that there's a presence there, but they really focus on that. I imagine, from what I gather, like with the
Yeah,
highest
I
tier.
mean, I know that there are a lot of PS1 classics on there, and there are some good ones. I'm just not interested in a lot of them. I think mainly just because there's so many other games out at the moment, and I think the PS2 stuff's a bit contentious at the moment. I know that I think they've been having some trouble emulating PS2 the same way as
Mm.
PS1. So I think there's a lot less, if any, PS2 games, and if there are PS2 games, they're generally ports of the PSP versions. Um, so hopefully they'll sort that out because I think PS2 for my kind of generation as well has some pretty cool games that could do with coming onto service. But again, whether it's enough to kind of jump tier up to premium, I don't know. Just because you get the bulk of the PS4, PS5 games with extra, and I'm just not sure it's worth the extra price because you can buy a lot of them, individually anyway. So I'm not sure if it's worth it.
Gotcha. Yeah, curious. Now moving on to August, we got PlayStation got into mobile games by acquiring Savage Game Studios. They're now going by the name Neon Koi. Not much here for me from this. I haven't seen any product out of that, but maybe behind the scenes they're working on retooling stuff for mobile. I'm not
Mm.
sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, especially with the kind of rumors that this new Horizon MMO is going to
Mm,
possibly be mobile. Is yeah, it could be interesting. I know Square Enix, I mean, Square Enix has been in the mobile space for quite a while now. So it might be some untapped kind of places. If you can get trophies on PlayStation mobile games, I'm keen.
yeah, I'm sure they got you in that way. But
Yeah, they'll get me.
and with mobile stuff, it's something that I always brush off, but it's reiterated every year where it's like that mobile gaming space is huge, and so
Mm,
it's maybe it may not be something that calls out to like console gamers, but it's big.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's bigger in certain countries, like I know in Korea, and in sort of many parts of Asia. I know mobile
Mm,
gaming's massive with all the kind of gacha games, and um, yeah, it's definitely something that could branch out, especially as phones are getting so much more expensive. They're getting better hardware inside. I mean, you see like the new iPhones able to play like Resident Evil 4 remake and
yeah.
things. And I don't think necessarily people ever want to play games like that because you need the controller and all of that. But just generally, games of that quality on mobile phone is, I think is quite exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now moving on to September of last year, or 2022 rather. Man, we still got a long way to go.
I
September of
know.
2022, we had the Last of Us 1 remake came out, and I was on this day one. I loved it. What did you think of the Last of Us 1 remake?
Yeah, I think I got it a little bit later on. Or did I? No, I think I did buy it when it first came out, but then didn't play it. But yeah, I don't think I finished it, the remake. But I did play through a lot of it. But yeah, I probably need to go back to that. It'd be nice to platinum the remake, but yeah, it is awesome. It looks great. Nice to play it with on the sort of updated graphics. It's much harder. I don't know if you found the same. That it
Mm.
definitely has that kind of aggression in the AI that Last of Us 2 had. Um, so it definitely changed it from that kind of perspective. But yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah, true. The updated AI was welcome because it
Yeah.
just makes it feel a bit more tense, just like you're
Mm,
playing on Last of Us 2, and with everything turned up. I mean, I loved it, and that really framed for me when they announced Last of Us 2 remake
yeah.
remaster. Where it's like maybe it was a bit more negative, but I was like, I loved, I'll keep playing
Mm,
these if they just
mm,
adjust stuff slightly every year.
yeah.
I'll basically keep buying these things because
Yeah.
they're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had that, which was great in September of 2022. Now we have moving to November, God of War Ragnarok, which was a huge game that launched in November. It's been a while since I've booted this up, but looking back, what were your thoughts on Ragnarok?
I didn't play it. I still haven't played it.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. I really need to. But yeah, it's on the never-ending list of things to get to. But the problem is I've heard it's got a good like catch up on it. But I'm half tempted to go through the first game again, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it's a game I absolutely need to get to. I'm slacking.
Dang. I mean, that was last year. But did something else big, drop around there, or you were just kind of not
I
playing, or
can't
something?
remember. Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, I would have been playing. It must have just come out. It may be around those times when you have like that patch where you don't really play much, but because I loved the first one. But I do this song. I did it with Ratchet and Clank as well, where I was like, I'll get that day one, 100%, and I didn't play it until months and months later. In fact, maybe a year later. Um, so yeah, it's on the list. There's that and a few other games that are on a kind of priority list that I need to get to fairly soon.
That's yeah. I loved it. There's issues, and I'll be interested to see what you think when you play it.
Mm,
Just
yeah.
how the gameplay changes from different things that can happen is what I'll say. But it's great, and I love the idea of where this goes next after playing
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
They just nailed it. And not related to the game at all, but my TV decided to start dying when I was playing God of War Ragnarok, and I noticed because there's so many snow areas, it's like Ragnarok is happening, so it's a full winter across these
Yeah. Yeah.
realms, right? So it's white on your TV, and I noticed it looked blue, but I'm like, I guess that's how the game looks. But I realized, oh, it's just like these LEDs on my TV are dying, so
All
it can't
right.
produce white anymore. So it was just a blue tint across everything, but still played it, still loved it.
Yeah, just a slightly blue version.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
So that was a big juggernaut. First party release from Sony in September, or sorry, November. Now we're moving into the Big Daddy PlayStation in 2023. So, Callum, we kick it off with January. We finally got the Last of Us TV show premiered on January 15th. Please tell me you watched this. I mean, you had enough
I
time.
did.
What'd you think?
I did watch it. Yeah. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. I think I always enjoy watching things. Like if I've read a book and it becomes a movie or a TV show, I always enjoy watching them just to see kind of how it's tackled differently. Because it always has to be different depending on the kind of format it's shown in. But I thought that yeah, the show did it so well. It just really kind of captured a lot of the vibes and the kind of feelings that the game does, and it was really nice to be able to kind of talk about The Last of Us with people, my friends or family who maybe don't play games but have now got to kind of experience this story. So it's really cool. And now with the second series coming as well, it's fun to be able to like talk to my partner about you know what teasing certain things coming. 'Cause she doesn't play games at all, but
Mm.
she really enjoyed the TV show, so it's nice to kind of marry those two things together.
Yeah, how do you tiptoe around with her about what happens in the second season? Like,
Yeah, I
that's gotta be
know. I
rough.
mean, I've even said when the remaster comes out, maybe I'll play that and she can watch because I don't know. I'd like it to be a surprise for her, but it's going to be difficult, especially when we've got a release date. Things are going to start hyping up online. That's where
Yeah.
it will leak out. So, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what she wants to do, but hopefully it will stay as a surprise. I've already told her it's hot, it's awful, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Um, it's not going to be enjoyable in the slightest, but in a good way. But yeah, that's the only kind of spoiler I've given.
Yeah, it's going to be, although if you've watched the show, you kind of get used to in this world, you get a little bit of happiness and then it's just nightmares after that. So it's
Yeah,
like, at least get used to, even with these characters that you've grown to love, they may not all survive. And,
yeah.
that's
But
just
there's
kind of
no
what you,
happiness in Last of Us 2. That's
no.
the thing. Like, there's these nice heartwarming moments in the first one, and in the second one, it's just horror constantly. and
Yeah.
then and then every time it starts to feel like it's gonna get heartwarming, and then gets like just completely worse. Which just means that every time there is then a heartwarming moment, you just don't trust it, and the kind of feelings lost. So yeah, horrible, horrible game, which I love. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, it's a game where it's like, if they're making you smile, then they're about to just tear your
exactly.
guts
Yeah,
out, in
yeah,
the next five
yeah,
minutes.
yes.
But no, it's great. And they didn't change a whole lot. That was a debate leading up to it's like, are they maybe going to keep or change characters and how you arrange? Like, there was slight changes, but it basically follows the show. I think of some of the lore they changed with the actual virus itself, like the way they're all kind of
Mm.
connected through these vines in the ground. Like that was a change. But did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's what was quite cool was the changes they made to try and sort of fit the way the TV show sort of went. It was interesting to see those kind of like lore additions and things because it's one of those where you'd need to kind of really sit down and think about what making that choice, how that kind of meant the show could go as it does. But yeah, there was lots of moments like that where you kind of notice these strange additions or removals, and it sort of make you wonder, why that was sort of brought into the TV show.
Or I loved the change with Billstown where you get to see him and his
Mm.
partner actually that connection build versus the game. You just come in at the for the aftermath of that.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was the whole sort of episode. I was kind of trying to figure out what was going on, like where in time we were, because it was quite confusing how you'd kind of you'd see them at that age, like as the outbreak happened. So you kind of knew watching that this is like at least 15 years in the past. Um, so like how are they gonna look the same in 15 years time? And I think there was a lot of that kind of um thing for the people who played the game, kind of making them think. And but it all turned out amazingly. It was, yeah, just a super super awesome episode and portrayal. And I think it makes sense because the action that you see in Billstown on the game is so fitted to a game.
Right.
It's very much about these kind of chase scenes and the kind of boss fights and certain things like that. Whereas in the TV show, it got to show, it can show things like that in a matter of seconds. So it just kind of spent its time on the kind of stuff that we didn't know in the game, which I think was really, really cool.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I am very excited for the new season to come out. I know they're going to start filming this year. I think it's like later this year.
Mm.
So it's going to be a while before we get that season 2. And I think even with characters who might meet a fate that we're not all excited about, it depends on how they reveal that in time. Because if you think of Last of Us
Yes.
2, the game, there's flashbacks, so they could just go consecutively in time and maybe
Yeah.
hold a big event for the end.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how they do it. Yeah, I just can't wait because the thing is, the hype hasn't even really began because we don't have a date. We haven't seen anything from it yet, so it's
Right.
only going to get more and more exciting.
Right. Absolutely. Cannot wait. But PlayStation nailed that. And really this year we'll talk about it, but they jumped way more into movies, TV shows with their
Mm,
properties, Sony in
yeah,
general. Now we got some hardware. Sony released the DualSense Edge controller for $200. I don't know how interested you are in this, if you grabbed it, but it's a pro controller for the PS5.
yeah, yeah. I didn't grab one, but it looks. I was just taken aback then because this kind of weird dark mode thing I've got on, it's like flip the colors
Oh,
on the pictures, and it looks really really cool. But yeah, no, I haven't got one. They're far too expensive for my
yeah.
uh, sort of for the amount I would need one. And also, I've got really small hands. Like the dual sense already hurts my hands, so this looks
Oh,
even bigger. So
gotcha. Well,
I need a
there's those.
PS4 controller with a USB-C port that works on
Yeah.
PS5. That's all I need.
There you go. Yeah, and these ones are like so many different paddles and options, and it's just like I have to retrain my brain. I'm not into that. It's just I'm fine
No,
with the standard controller. They're already
yeah,
expensive enough. I'll keep that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's this ridiculous price. No matter how nice they might feel, no matter how many I mean, how many buttons do games even have? How many inputs do they
Right.
even have that people need to like add things? It's just weird. Yeah, it's too
Yeah.
much.
You got a touchpad, just use a touchpad for something.
Yeah, just press X.
There you go. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Now, Callum, speaking of hardware, we got in February of this last year, PSVR 2 launched for
Mm.
$550 in the US. PSVR 2, have you gotten to play it? Any thoughts?
I haven't got to play it. Again, just a bit pricey. I've got an Oculus or a Meta Quest 2, which
Yeah,
I don't
same.
really use, but I like every time I do use it. But I haven't used it, heard mixed things. I'm sure the hardware's good, but yeah, I'm not. The only two games recently that I've seen are what's that? The kind of fantasy one. So something's Wrath, Azura's Wrath or something.
Oh yeah, I want to. That's
Um,
one that got really good reviews.
yes, yeah, that
Yeah,
looks really really cool. And there was something else
is that even
that
on
I thought
PSVR
looked
two,
cool.
or is that still just on Oculus?
I don't actually know what it's on, but I was thinking about seeing if I can play it on the Quest 2, um, because that does look quite fun. But yeah, there's a couple of things that I thought maybe that seems quite cool. Oh, the Assassin's Creed game,
True.
um, which I don't even know if that's on PlayStation VR 2 or not, but that looks quite cool as
Good
well.
question. Which makes it feel like they're dropping the ball on some of these
Uh,
exclusives. There was Call of the Wild, the Horizon game for PSVR two.
yes, yes, that was made in Brighton actually.
Ooh,
Funnily enough, but yeah, that looks cool as well. I haven't played that. Um, but I think Horizon's just a whole thing I need to get back into anyway. It's kind of gotten away from me a little bit, so um, maybe I'd be more tempted if I was kind of the sooner after I play the second game.
yeah, yeah. No, and we'll talk about the DLC, but that I think that answers my question of whether you play that or not. But we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
But with PSVR two, it's great piece of hardware. Like there was fantastic reviews on all the different
Mm,
media outlets. They're saying like hardware is awesome, the actual screen fidelity is awesome, the upgraded controllers are great. It just comes down to the software, and that was my issue with PSVR the original.
mm,
I was really hoping to see, for me, the big juggernaut VR game where it's like you have to get VR to play this was Half-Life Alyx. And I
yeah.
was really hoping they were going to work with Valve to get that because this hardware could run it.
Yeah,
and we've yet to see that, and I don't really think we will now. And
yeah,
it's just that's the game, that's the exclusive or the experience you have to get on PSVR 2, I think.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a good point. I was also hoping that it would be announced, but then I think when it came out, it just kind of fizzed out so quickly that I didn't even think about whether or not it even released on the headset. But yeah, it's interesting it hasn't, because you would have thought it would have by now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems to be maybe uh, left for dead already.
It's a bummer, and really the PSVR 2 survived and the Vita died because of it. I imagine just with allocating, resources and focusing on hardware and stuff.
Mm.
It's a bummer as we see the the increase in like these PC handhelds, and now we have we'll talk about PlayStation's handheld in a bit too. But it's like you have these now PC hardware mobile things that are happening, these handhelds where it's like a Vita would have been amazing in that space, but instead that died and we got the PSVR.
Yeah, which is probably also going to die.
It's very possible. It's very,
Yeah.
very possible. Now, Callum, we'll move on. Quickly, The Last of Us 1 remake came to PC. It had a hard time on PC, but that was in the news. People not liking the PC release.
Yes, it was a bit broken, wasn't it? From what I can remember,
Yeah.
there was some funny memes going around. But yeah, it was it's funny just because it's, you know, it's already existed elsewhere and it was great, and then just suddenly sort of ported over and it just became this mess, which as far as I know is fixed now,
I think
I
so.
assume. But yeah, it was quite funny. I think because everyone knows it's great, and most people have played it. I think a lot of people, it kind of was taken in jest, a lot of it, which I think was a bit of a better reaction. I think there was a lot more jokes and things rather than people actually getting too hot on the people who made it, which is always good.
Yeah, true. Now, moving on, we got RE4 remake launched in March 24th of last year. They also eventually came to PSVR 2 in a VR mode. But the Resident Evil 4 remake, I was super hyped about it. Was very excited for them to finally release this. It came out. I loved it. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely loved it. I played another run through recently when I first got the Portal, and yeah, it's so good. It's so good. I'd like to get the platinum trophy on it maybe, but it's very long, lots of playthroughs required. So we'll see if I muster up the courage. Maybe I'll just like chip away at it over the year or something.
Yeah, true. This is one where as soon as Capcom dropped Resident Evil 2 remake, it was really just in my mind a race to RE4, and they just nailed every
Mm.
release. And now we're here. They really held or kept that game in its perfect entirety. They updated the movement and the various mechanics, but like there was no misstep. It's like they nailed it. So I'm just really stoked to see like where do they go? Do they keep doing every RE? Do they just go to five? Like, but I just trust them entirely with revitalizing those games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they can't really do much wrong at the moment, even with RE3 being that maybe slight kind of drop off. I think RE4 was just kind of confirmed that they haven't lost it. It was just a different kind of game, and yeah, super excited to see what they do next. I think they've kind of cement themselves as a studio that as soon as something comes out from them, it's very likely going to be really really good. So um, yeah, they're just doing so well at the moment. I can't wait to see what they decide to do next.
Yeah, and they're just a studio, a company that has nailed it, where they're sitting on this huge property for years,
Mm.
and the way they've remastered, remade these originals, and then they continue in that series as they jump to like RE7, Village and whatnot. The way they balance that is really good, and I think of other
Mm.
studios like Konami, where it's like they're
Mm.
sitting on these really dormant, awesome
Yeah,
properties, and nothing's being done, and it's like just follow what Capcom does.
yeah. And I love it as well. I know that people have their opinions on remakes and things, but it kind of we're in a space now where like these games will be good to play probably forever. So it's kind of like companies just bringing their back catalogs up to a certain standard where everyone can enjoy them
Hmm.
forever. These games, some of these games that are remade, they're very dated, and like if you played it before when it first came out, you're probably still happy to play that original. But for the majority of people, they need something a bit more modern. So it's great to see these kinds of back collections and things coming back so that we can all enjoy and for some people experience it for the first time in a much easier way than normal.
Yeah, I agree. I loved it. There was some DLC that came out with Ada Wong. I
Mm,
didn't try that, but just a perfect, remaster to a game that we really had to handle that game with, with gloves, with care,
yeah,
and I think they nailed it.
yeah, absolutely agree.
Nice, Cal. Move on to in April, we had Horizon Forbidden West DLC. The Burning Shores came out. We also lost the late great Lance Riddick, who voices Silence in the Horizon series. So that was right around that release. That news came out, which is a huge bummer. But what'd you think of? Did you get to play this? I'm assuming you didn't, by how you're talking about it.
Yeah, I played about maybe 4 or 5 hours of Forbidden, maybe a bit longer, of Forbidden West. I got to the part where you kind of just about open the open world, um, and I just stopped playing. I can't remember why, but yeah, I just fell off of it, and I intend to go back, but it might actually help because sometimes I find when DLC comes out, by that time you're done with the game and you can't remember what's happened or you can't remember how to play it. I certainly forget both of those things from games quite quickly. So it might time in a bit better that I can, play through Forbidden West and then go straight through Burning Shores afterwards.
Yeah, I don't think I finished it either, but I got really damn close to the end. But I was digging it. I mean, it's
Mm.
these worlds that Gorilla makes. They're just like so impressive. Just the graphics, the mechanics, the stuff you're doing, all the effects, the monsters or the robot dinosaurs in this world. Everything's just so beautiful and fun, and you get to fully fly around everywhere. The actual gameplay fighting is intense, and there's a lot you have to manage. So it always takes me a little bit when I jump back into a Horizon game to just learn everything again. But
Yeah, yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, I think that's one thing because it is such a big world with lots of politics and different characters and different factions. I think that is something that kind of makes it difficult because not only is this a sequel, so you need to try and remember that context from the first game. I remember struggling with kind of catch up videos and things before because just none of them seemed to. They were either way too detailed and would take like hours and hours of watching, or they just weren't detailed enough. So um, it's quite difficult to kind of get back into that, world, just because of how complicated it is. But there was a few things I remember not really liking about the second game. I can't remember what it was, but um, so there was definitely that influence in me stop playing it as well. Not that I stopped playing it because I didn't like it, but it just kind of made that decision a bit easier. That I remember there was something a bit off about it.
Mm. Yeah, I know story wise, it's a bit cheesy to me, this entire story. The performances sometimes are just a little over the top or just kind of weird, but I still overall enjoy them. It's just, but when you mention that, there's definitely times with me in the last game and in this one where I'm just like, okay, we're just, let's take
Yeah,
a break and take
yeah,
it easy. It's just kind of over the top.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Nice, Cal. Move on to the next one here. We got the Twisted Metal TV show premiered on Peacock streaming service. I did not watch this. It did not call out to me, but people seem to be sort of positive. Do you have any thoughts on that TV show?
Yeah, didn't watch. I haven't played the game, so it didn't really speak to me in any way, and it didn't look worth it if I didn't know the game. So, but yeah, I heard mixed things. Heard some people really positive about it. I haven't actually heard that much negative, but I think maybe it had a kind of low bar that kind of maybe not everyone had that much expectation anyway, which might have helped it a little bit.
Yeah, my buddy Gavin, he did watch it, and he enjoyed it. He said it's ridiculous, but they kind of nail that world. And yeah, I was just never a big Twisted Metal fan, but I
Yeah,
loved how weird that game was, that series was. And it
yeah.
seems like they're going for that kind of thing. I know there's writers with the Deadpool movie that are tied to it, so it seems like they're trying to go wacky but somewhat believable.
Yeah, yeah, it does look it does look cool, and maybe I'll get around to maybe if the second series looks decent. But yeah, it's nice just to see more game stuff hitting, these other mediums. I think.
Yeah, they're kind of we're in a world where it's like even the bad ones are still fine. When before
Yeah,
growing up, it was just the worst interpretations of a game as a show or a movie.
yeah, yeah,
All right, Cal, moving on to September of last year, we had PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan announce his intent to step down in September, fully transitioning out in March of 2024. Mr. Ryan would serve almost 30 years with the company. Sony's chief operating officer, Hiroki Totoki, will take over as interim CEO. How do you feel about this news? It's kind of a big one. And also tied with this is just an image which I thought was amazing
Yeah,
of whatever party they threw for Jim Ryan for retiring. They gave him a tricked out PS1 style PS5, and it looks
yeah. They
awesome.
have to release that controller, don't they?
Right.
They have to. I had the PS1 DualShock 4, and it was my favorite. Um, yeah, that would be awesome. It'd still be too big for my hands, but there's not much they can do about
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? Big change in the hierarchy. So we'll see if anything changes, and what if anything does. And there's been lots of different there's been commentary about the reasons he's left and all that, but I think generally it will just. I mean, he's quite old, isn't he? He looks fairly old, maybe in his
I want to say,
70s.
yeah, he's getting up there.
Yeah, so yeah, he looks in the age of somebody who probably with the amount of money he probably has time to call it a day and sleep on a beach somewhere. Um, I don't know why he'd be sleeping on a beach somewhere, but that kind of holiday
Right.
dream retirement. He's probably got that, hasn't he? So good for him. And yeah, we'll see. I guess what happens. They don't really talk much anyway, do they? So we don't hear much from PlayStation. So it's kind of hard to know what if anything's changing.
Yeah, that's the weird part where it's like we don't know, if it's
Yeah,
amicable or what's going on. We just theorize, and he has taken off, and it looks like I want to say he mentioned this in his announcement where he's grown tired of the travel because it's just like on a plane, all these different
right.
studios, you're jet setting around the world, and it's like I just can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and he's old as
Right.
well. So yeah, it'd be pretty tiring, I assume. I mean, I did. Maybe he's not that old actually. I'm trying to like visualize his face, and I've got like two versions of him where one isn't that old and one is really old. So
I'd say
maybe I'll give him
without
the
any
benefit of the doubt.
research, I'm gonna say 68. Just gonna kind of ballpark.
Yeah, oh,
I
it's
don't
not
think
too
quite
old then.
70s.
It's not very old to retire, I guess. But as a CEO of PlayStation, it's probably around that age, isn't it?
I mean,
Probably
I'll
have a
do it if they
nice.
need someone that's fine jumping on a plane. I'll do that
Yeah,
easily.
exactly. Yeah, if it's just getting on a plane, I can sit on a plane.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right, Callum, we got this breakaway hit, Baldur's Gate, hit PlayStation in September here. So Baldur's Gate 3 launched on PS5 September 6th, getting console exclusivity until December 8th of the same year. So I bring this up because this was a multi-platform game where it was on PC, early access for years, came to PS5, and then dominated the end of this last year. Everyone was talking about it, but what's interesting was it was on PS5 for a good 2 months without any competition, and then dropped on Xbox
Was that because
recently.
of the split screen stuff for the
I,
Series
w-
S?
I want to say apparently when it was really hot in the news, they kept mentioning through different interviews that they have to abide by Xbox's standards where it's got to release
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Series S, which is
But then they ended up
100
not doing it anyway, didn't they? I mean, it's still released on Series S, but it just had no split screen.
right.
So
So
it's
they
like a
dropped that
different
feature.
version of the game. Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I couldn't remember if it was exclusive because Sony had paid for it to be exclusive, or whether it was just had been delayed on Xbox. Um, but yeah, either way, it's nice to have a game of that caliber, exclusively on your platform, for
Yeah, they
sure.
basically got this exclusive without, I think, having to pay for it, and to kind of
Yeah,
just coincided with if you want to play this on console, PS5, and they just really
yeah.
benefited from that. Did you jump into this at all? Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate.
I played it when it first came out on early access. I played um it sort of immediately from then, and it was super buggy and broken. I think you could only do Act One, but even then I was like, this is something pretty crazy. I knew that it was going to be great, and it was already great even when I was playing it. And there was no facial animations in the some of the cutscenes, and it was very very early days. But yeah, so I jumped in when it officially released on Steam because I already had it, so I thought might as well get back on this. And yeah, it's pretty pretty amazing. I mean, um, it's a game you have to get super involved in.
Mm,
And when you do, there's nothing quite like it. But for me, I just find it quite difficult to get involved in it for the amount of time it requires me to. I think I probably spent about 20 hours with it when it first came out again, and I was like really invested into it. But then it kind of gets to the point where I'm like, I do want to play that, but like I just can't be asked. Like I can't be bothered to remember what's going on, speak to everybody, because you really do want to do that in a game like this. And I think that's why maybe up until now they've been quite inaccessible for some people, even with like the Divinity games. But classic RPGs, they like this, they do just require so much of you. But on that same note, I think that just shows how good it is because the amount of people that have come over and played it, and a lot of people who've never played a game like this before. And of course, the fact it's in the D&D universe and D&D being as big and popular as it is now, all just helps, doesn't it? But yeah, it's a fantastic game, and it's one that I do intend on getting back to. Maybe I'll play it on PlayStation because it means I can probably just lie down and play it, but I might as well play it on Steam as I already have it there.
True. Yeah, this is a game that gameplay wise, the mechanics never called out to me,
Mm.
but the fact that everyone loves it, how deep it seems to be. I've seen some gameplay where it's like, and they're really trying to replicate like an actual D&D, playthrough where it's like
Mm.
whatever you can kind of think of doing, they've accounted for that and you can do it. I really like that idea.
Yeah.
I've just never been drawn to this type of game, but I do at some point got to try it because it does look dope.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, for me, I love playing games like this, at a desk. And there's not many games I like to play games on PlayStation mostly, but games like this and like Civilization and sort of these kind of games where you've got to really be immersed and thinking about what you're doing. Um, it's really nice to just sit there and be like really into it. And it looks great as well. It's a great looking game, which helps.
Yeah, and you can hook up with bears is one thing I heard.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. Never got to that bit, but excited to.
Right. All right, Callum, moving on. October, we had a Juggernaut first party game come out from PlayStation, Spider Man 2, released in October of last year. Did you get to try any Spider Man 2? What'd you think?
I did. I had a big weekend with it, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was really good. I didn't have as many technical bugs as maybe some people did, but I could definitely tell that there was something funky with it. Yeah, I liked it. It's a typical kind of really good writing, but definitely um, aimed to a very, very broad, appeal. It's definitely Marvel touched in a lot of ways, but still for me probably the best Marvel story kind of thing you can get at the moment. Even I think even in the MCU's kind of highest moments, I still think the Marvel or the Insomniac Spider-Man games still are probably much better. I think I'm just a lot more. I just like those characters a lot more, and I think they're better told. But yeah, it was a great game. Really, really enjoyed my time with it. But in a year with so many great games, it almost kind of after I was done with it, I didn't really think about it maybe as much as some of these other games.
Yeah, kind of in the same boat where I did, I think in basically a weekend, maybe from Friday to Monday, was able to whip it out and complete most of it. And I think at
Mm,
that point, I picked away at some of the little doodads you collect, after that. But I had a blast. And
mm.
Uh, it's just more, Spider-Man at that same caliber. They really improved the traversal where I didn't think they could improve on that, but like the flying suit, the little jet streams you go through, it's just nonstop, movement, and it just feels really good to play.
Yeah, yeah, it felt so good, and we all knew it would,
Right.
after the first game. But yeah, it was exactly kind of what you wanted. But yeah, I think there's only so far you can kind of impress with a Spider-Man game. I think, especially this year where we've had so many games come out that are so unique and original in lots of different ways.
Now I find myself towards the end of the game being a bit um I was just kind of done playing it.
Mm,
I think I had my fill faster than I felt with Spider-Man 1 or with Miles, where I'm sort of feeling like they do improve stuff and they change it, but it seems very similar to the other games where I just kind of get my fill. I get tired of playing these after a lot faster than I would like to, and I'm just ready for a change up. And so
yeah.
the idea of like them tackling Wolverine and changing the gameplay, but then I think of okay, what the next Spider-Man would be from Insomniac. I want something different because I don't know if
Mm.
I don't want to get tired playing this like I did.
Yeah, I think it's annoyingly, I think that they probably could, for me especially, just get away with it just because I love Spider-Man, and I just think there's something about playing a Spider-Man game that's been the same since like the PS2 days, even the PS1 days, Spider-Man on PS1, where there's just something about playing a Spider-Man that just never gets old, I think. So I think we would probably grin and bear through the kind of repetitiveness, if there was to be that, in like future titles, just because you get to play Spider-Man, you get to beat up
True.
Spider-Man villains, which for me is great. But yeah, it will be really nice, especially with a team like Insomniac. They obviously, we've now found out, are basically just going to be making Marvel games, which
Yeah.
is a bit of a shame, because they're so good.
Yeah, it's we'll get to that. It's interesting. But yeah, no, had a blast. Spider-Man 2, another banger from Insomniac, and this is one where this year we got to see it for the most part, where it's like there's not a lot of PS4 versions of games we're getting into now.
Hmm.
PS5 focused, built from the ground up releases, which is what I want, and we're able to
Yeah,
see these teams really stretch out and add all these new features.
yeah, yeah. It's very exciting.
Nice, Callum. Well, we're getting into the dark days with PlayStation. This end of the year has been not very nice, not very fun. But we'll get into
No.
it. So we got Connie Booth, head of production at PlayStation, leaves after 34 years. These are rumors, current rumors, courtesy of David Jaffe. Claims there's a lot more inside drama tied to why Connie left her position. I have no knowledge. It's just it's always weird when somebody for that long leaves. It seems all this kind of all of a sudden, but any thoughts, any, perspective on this?
No, not really. I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? Especially people who have somewhere for a long time. It can be easy to disagree with things, especially when you've been there for that long. You've probably got a lot of attachment to the way certain things are done, maybe. But um, yeah, I don't think it's the problem is that it just gets kind of swirled up in like a media thing, doesn't it? Because of who it is and where they are. PlayStation's kind of in this weird almost like showbiz realm now, where it's sort of with all like the console rivalry stuff, it's just all weirdly dramatized all the time. So yeah, I don't think it's that weird to have drama going on at companies and then people leaving and getting annoyed with their role. It happens everywhere you work. There's probably three or four people, probably, and including yourself sometimes, who are just like, oh, I don't like the way this was done. I might leave or whatever. So I think the higher up you get is probably more common than people maybe think.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. We'll see if anything else comes out of that. It's just always interesting with David Jaffe because he's a well-known
Mm,
person in the gaming space, and he seems to still have these connections within Sony. But do we know if he's getting accurate info, or he is, and it's just we won't find out until years later. He was right on the money,
yeah,
but it's I
yeah,
do like to just hear what he has to say every once in a while because
yeah.
he's got wild ideas and apparently some info from what's going on.
And no filter, so you get all
Yeah,
of
yeah.
it.
There's no NDAs he's signing. It's just
Yeah,
straight from his mouth.
no, yeah.
All right, Callum. We got Last of Us 2 in October. Factions, Last of Us 2 factions, not canceled, but on ice. So this is just in real time in October. Here's what we heard from there. Insiders report Bungie Studios were brought in to evaluate the state of the game. And after this meeting, the game was put on hold. Now, these are media outlets that were reporting this at the time. Nobody ever confirmed it, but then we eventually get the news, which we'll fast forward to in December, that The Last of Us Online was canceled by Naughty Dog. Thoughts on this? This is a huge bummer for me, and I really wish I knew what the hell was going on internally. But our thoughts on Last of Us 2 factions no longer being a thing?
Yeah, I think it's obviously stupid. I think it's annoying because the kind of excuse they've used is that they were trying to basically make something that no one had even sort of asked for. I think they just wildly misread what people wanted, from people who were fans of the original multiplayer wanted. Um, Nobody wanted this kind of like huge, like groundbreaking, game as a service that we're going to be playing for years and years. Because that is difficult to make. That's why there's
Right.
only one or two games really that have done it successfully, and um, I don't think anyone who enjoyed factions wanted that. I think they just wanted what we had on Last of Us One, almost like just a multiplayer component to Last of Us Two. Um, the fact it was standalone already, I remember rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because they were like, "Well, it's not really what we want. We don't want a Last of Us online game. We want just that component where we can use the mechanics of the game and have this fun little like meta that the first game had, and obviously they probably would have expanded on. And yeah, just those same kind of suspenseful fights that maybe play the game for 6 months to a year, and maybe support it for another year with some DLC or something, and that's fine. It didn't have to be this crazy games of service thing. But obviously, I think that the idea there was mainly to make as much money as possible rather than bring out a proper successor to what people wanted. And I understand that you always want to go for the thing that makes more money, but there wasn't really any need to even put that much money into a second Last of Us multiplayer because they were already aiming higher than people kind of wanted, I think. So that's why the excuse doesn't really sit well, because it's objectively correct that yes, they would have to put way too much resource into it, but it's also, why would you have to put that much resource into it anyway? Nobody wanted it to be that big. Or I certainly didn't, and all my friends who also enjoyed the Last of Us multiplayer sort of feel the same way. So yeah, it's very, very frustrating, and yeah, big mistake, I think.
Yeah, you nailed a lot of points there. Where just going back, I mean, who wanted this, big sprawling, like something we never done before kind of experience with Last of
Mm.
Us multiplayer? We really, this was born out of the era of Naughty Dog, where look at Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, they were just tackling on multiplayer aspects to these games. And then with the original, with Last of Us 1 multiplayer, and it was fine and people enjoyed it. It was something that was included. It seems like they were calibrating their team where it's like part of you work
And
on
people
making
still
this.
play it.
Yeah, they still play, which is a testament to how
Yeah,
fun that gameplay loop was.
and
But there
they
was
haven't supported it in like what 10 years,
right, yeah,
and
because
people
it's
are still playing it.
they're still playing it. What is it? PS3 launch of Last of Us 1. I think that's the only way
Yeah,
to play it because
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
it's come out on PS4. We had the remake of PS5. There's no reiteration. It's just they're
yeah,
playing the PS3 version of this game
yeah,
10 years later.
yeah. It's. I mean, yeah. I mean, I loved. I think I actually ended up playing the multiplayer more on PS4, on the remastered version.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, it was so good. It just fit so well, and there wasn't that much content in it. It's not what people came back to it for. It wasn't for the you know this season of this season's battle pass. You unlock this cap or whatever. There was hardly any of that in it because no one cared. It was just every encounter was so stressful and suspenseful, and the meta game with having sick people and having to get enough supplies each match to feed everybody, and it was just amazing. And it was the simplicity that made it so good, I think, in that kind of meta game, which I haven't seen replicated anywhere since. And I just don't know why they didn't just expand on that bit, or just expand on all the bits in the game that people enjoyed, and not make something completely different.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because we're now in an era with these multiplayer games where they basically have to have some kind of service
Mm.
aspect to it. There has to be some kind of battle pass equivalent, something that keeps people going and buying stuff. And so no longer is this something that's included in whatever experience. It's like it's got to be its own. It's got to be free to play. That was the rumors that were tied
Mm.
to this new factions as well. So it's annoying because the core audience didn't want that, and so
No.
you have to imagine whoever higher up said, "That's cool. We got to jump on this
And
this
I
craze."
would have paid like 30, 40 quid for a Last of Us Factions game that still wasn't a live service. Like if they were just like, this is a standalone multiplayer experience, there's 6 maps. We're gonna release, maybe 2 or 3 more maps in the year. We'll support it for a year. Like, here you go. I'd snap that up, no problems, for 40, £50. Um, so they didn't even need to think about doing like the free to play, let's get loads of money on cosmetics and all this. It's just like people buy it. And not just people who enjoyed factions, like people because of the TV show.
Right.
People would just be like, multiplayer game, Last of Us, I'm buying that. People who maybe didn't even know Last of Us had a multiplayer in the first game, they'd still buy it.
Yeah, no, in the
So I
chat,
don't know.
in the just one of the YouTube comments, DeFuzz says that's a problem. People are playing the original factions, but they're not making any money from it. And I think it's It's really just whoever higher up deciding, you know what, there's money left on the table that we can consecutively be made if making if it's a game that's like a Destiny or like a Fortnite where people are constantly buying stuff versus they give them the $35,
Yeah,
which it's always a weird debate in my head where it's like how much more where which way would you make more money? It's something that's $40 that people buy and they buy it once, but more people buy it maybe, or it's something
mm,
where it's free to play and way less people give you money over time. Like with
yeah,
Fortnite, I'm not giving them money every year. I think I've still only played it for free for like the past 2 years. Maybe I've bought a dumb dance or something for like $5, but it's just like those two different routes to
yeah,
making money is interesting.
yeah, yeah. I think it is. It's just the wrong two things married together. Obviously PlayStation want their Fortnite, but one is very unlikely to even happen because how difficult it is to all the stars have to align and all of this stuff. And I just think it was something that was kind of already going to be fine, at very least. Um, and yeah, it's just a shame. I mean, who knows? Maybe it would sell really badly, but I just don't think it would because it's got the Last of Us name attached to it. And again, they don't need it doesn't need to be this insane ambitious thing. Um, it just needs to be the same kind of makeup as the first multiplayer with the new, they've already shown with this roguelike that they've obviously got these assets to use. The kind of roguelike mode,
Right.
playing as different characters, all the and the yeah, yeah. So it's a weird one, but a very big shame that it's likely we're not going to see any more multiplayer Last of Us. But yeah,
Yeah, this one, it's tough to let this topic go where because there's a lot of different things at play, right? Where there's just thinking of financially how much money that they wasted basically by
mm,
getting this game because they were supposed to actually reveal it in 2024. They kept saying like we're getting close to actually showing this game off. They haven't in the past, and they were working on
yeah.
this since Last of Us 2. um, the fact that this thing is was maybe pretty close to being at least revealed launching maybe
Mm.
2025, and to have to just shelve the entire thing and not go, hey, let's rework it, maybe we throw it into Last of Us 2 remake or something, we just
Well,
delay
that's what
that
you.
game.
I mean, that's what surprised me as well. Is it's like you've already spent however much money on it. Surely there's enough there to just get something out, like just something. Like
Yeah.
the amount of money and time that's been spent on it. What is there then? And in some of the statements they made, they were like, "I was progressing really well." Even in the statement when they cancelled it, they said, it was going really, really well and looking really good. And it's like, well, just surely it's just you might as well just take the loss on a few more quid and just get something out there because they're not going
Yeah.
to recoup anything otherwise. But you know, maybe that's the reason I don't. I'm not the one making these kind of decisions. Maybe that's a stupid idea.
So there's that aspect of a lot of money being lost, and I think of what does a producer do on a game? Like that's kind of their job is here's our goals for the before we release this. Here's how much money is being spent. You know, what can we make? What do we have to cut? Was there a producer on this project? Because it seems like they were getting close to getting this game done and realizing, oh, we're gonna have to support this after this thing launches. It's weird
Mm,
where there's this disconnect, which Naughty Dog would know. So I think there's just stuff obviously that we don't know behind the scenes. It's just
yeah.
all of it seems really weird.
Well, it's either there was not not much in the name in the sort of regards of production, or maybe there was way too much. Um, just being because it sounds like this thing was like torn in loads of different directions as well, with all the different hirings that were made around it, and then people leaving, and then
Mm,
Bungie coming in allegedly and looking at it. I don't know how much there is to any of that, but
right,
and all this kind of inter studio politics stuff. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things. I know hindsight is very handy to us, but you just sort of do have to think like all of this just came from them. Nobody wished this. They didn't have to do this. Um, and that's what makes it worse that they're having to cancel the game because of what they did.
right.
Um, nobody wanted this. Just they didn't have to do that in the first place. But yeah, it's a shame that we'll never see it again. Maybe, as you see sometimes, that maybe there's a few products from independent teams or something that were maybe there to kind of compete with it, and now they see it's cancelled. Maybe they'll push and try and get something out similar because there is definitely space for that suspenseful multiplayer, short. And especially that meta, I still haven't seen that anywhere. That kind of meta of having your camp, and you have this kind of out of the game. You have this kind of progression system that is evolves and changes depending on how well you perform, which I just love. And it's just a shame we won't get to see something like that again.
Now we'll end on this, but with this topic. But do you think you'd want to see what they have so far, or would it hurt even more to see what they have and not get it?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to see what they have. It'd be better to see that. I think it would only help. I think because if it looked really good, then you could be like, oh well, at least what they were trying was at least good. But then, yeah, like you said, it might then be like, well, just spend like half a year on just turning into a very simple multiplayer lobby kind of orientated game. 6 months to a year, and just get out. But I don't think they will.
Yeah, it's I just wonder, would it be even more kicking the balls if this leaks and then you see it and it's like, oh, it would have been awesome, and then nope, it's canceled. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
They,
Callum.
they,
Well,
they better make up for it.
here's hoping. Now,
Yeah.
speaking of leaks, this was another dark time for us recently in the PlayStation world, and we'll touch this topic in December. Insomniac Games suffered a huge ransomware attack. So, from the group Resida, if that's how you pronounce it, announced they had acquired in December 1.76 terabytes worth of internal data on Insomniac Game Studios. Fast forward a couple of days, they held this data for ransom for 2 million. Insomniac didn't want to pay it, obviously, and they leaked all this stuff, personal info on personnel and people that work there, uh, gameplay on Wolverine, and just other projected projects for the future. Maybe the worst kind of ransomware attack we've seen with games, with companies like this in recent years. What are your thoughts on this whole event?
This is why IT security is so important.
True. You need a raise, sir.
Yeah, no, well, I'm not in IT security, but I work closely with them, and yeah,
Mm.
it's yeah, it's horrible. I mean, it's something that's so important, especially kind of in work. It's something that's you're constantly thinking about is the security of your systems and where everything's held and hosted and kept, and it just shows how easy it is as well because I'm sure Insomniac have a very competent, IT department, and it just shows how easy, like these phishing attacks and things, and they're constant as well. Just always happening, and you're always having to protect against them and be vigilant against them. So yeah, it's awful that people's personal information is leaked as well. Um, but yeah, it's to be honest, in terms of like the actual game stuff, I know builds and things have been leaked, but it's been happening. It happens all the time, really. I mean, you're
True.
always hearing about these sort of data leaks and these hacks and things. But I think it's just a big. It's all when you have ransomware and they're demanding the amount of money they were demanding. It does tend to flare up the drama a bit. Um, but yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just how it works in with data and everything. You're constantly being attacked for your data to try and make money. It's almost like a job for these people. So yeah, it's unfortunately it's not going to slow down. It's probably just going to get worse and worse.
Yeah, you mentioned it's like a job for these people, and that's a weird aspect where these are hacking groups that they're trying to, if you break it down, like they're trying to make money. They're trying to get 2 million out of a company by taking their data, but you also can't trust that they're going to honor whatever agreement you have. So it's like, but they do it. They're doing it to try and make money, not just to leak the stuff. They do. These people are pieces of shit. I'm not trying to defend. I'm just trying to understand, like, they're doing it to make money, but how do you make that situation a handshake where you go, okay, you gave us 2 million, we're going to give you this data right back. It's not going to be copied, like, but you can't trust that that's going to happen. So their
No.
business plan makes no sense.
Yeah, yeah. It is. You did think sort of straight away that I don't think they're going to give the money. I think they'll probably just let it leak and go from there, really. Because the personal data stuff is horrible, obviously, but it's your personal data can leak from lots of different things.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a nice thing. I mean, I would hate it, but It's like we've got a thing called Xperia. I don't know if it's in the US. It's like where you check your credit rating. And the amount of times I log in there and it's like, oh, your email address is being sold on like an online market and all these things. It
Mm.
just tells you all these horrible things about where certain accounts of credentials have been scrubbed and being used and these things. And it's so as soon as you input stuff in the internet and with scammers as well. I mean, we get it all the time. Like that's how phishing attempts happen. Is that they'll see somebody works for this company, go on their LinkedIn, find out who their manager is, and then find out their manager's information and then pretend to be that person and talk to that person. I mean, we get lots of emails to
Uh,
people where it's like people pretending to be your boss. They're like, "Oh, I need you to phone me, or I need you to do this for me, and all this stuff, and
Send
or I
me your
need you
social
to,
security number.
yeah, or I need you to download this PDF and things, and then you download it, and that's you done. Um, so it's very scary, but people just need to be vigilant and just be aware of the risks. I think a lot of the time as well, people are kind of a little bit, you know, annoyed when you have to do your multi-factor authentication or make sure you're changing your passwords, and everyone sort of is like, oh, but is it really going to happen to me? And it's like,
Right.
yeah, it probably will. It's that prevalent. So yeah, it's just going to keep happening, and bigger companies are going to get made examples out of.
It's a bummer, and just being alive today sucks because
It
everyone's trying
does,
to
yeah, it
they're all
does.
out to get you. But to close on the Insomniac stuff, I wonder if I'm hoping that this it doesn't help them, but it's like I'm on TikTok all the time, right? I'm on YouTube and blah blah blah. There's people that will share this stuff, but it seems like there's hype now more so because people are excited for what we got to see, even though it's like rough builds. So I wonder if this didn't hurt them as far as like, oh, we got to see it, now I no longer care. It's like people are still hungry for whatever their games are going to be for this Wolverine project. So I'm wondering if, as we look into the future, it's like this little trickle of information maybe hyped, this next game even more, if that matters at all.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely put more eyes on it. But yeah, it can have sort of big. I think it's definitely sort of comes from marketing as well. They like to announce games at specific times, and
Yeah,
so it can definitely financially affect things. Um, but yeah, at the end of the day, I think there does have to be that kind of outlook on it as well, which is difficult when it's personal info being leaked. But if it is just game data being leaked, you do have to just kind of think, yes, that's really annoying, but at the end of the day, we're making video games,
right.
so
Yeah,
just
and this
calm
stuff is
down.
gonna leak in somewhat
Yeah.
some capacity, or you got to roll with it. Like look at GTA 6. That was a huge trailer that was
Mm,
announced, and then it leaked basically the day before, and so Rockstar went, okay, here you go. Like they just kind of
yeah.
try to
I mean,
roll with the
it's a
punch.
shame as well for the people who work on these things, and everyone wants it to come out, and be announced in a certain way for that buzz and that excitement. But um, it's just how the world is. Everyone has eyes and ears and everything, and people can't keep secrets, and people talk, and people hack.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's not very nice. It's a whole other side to things. The whole cyber behavior.
Yes. Yeah, it's not fun. Now, Cal, we'll move on to some better times with PlayStation last year. November, we got some hardware launches. So we had the long rumored PS5 Slim launch with the detachable disc drive, $450 for the digital version, 500 with the disc drive, and about $80 if you want to buy that disc drive
I'll
separate.
tell you what else is separate. The stand.
Oh yeah, it's like $30 US.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting.
and I know that because I bought a friend of mine a PS5 Slim as his wedding present.
Ooh,
And when he opened it all up, he was very excited, sort of videoing it. I noticed that there was no stand, and I was like, "Oh, well, hopefully you don't need it."
yeah,
But yeah, so very Apple move
right.
from PlayStation on that one.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, we both got launched PS5s, and then you got one pretty close to launch, and it comes with a little bullshit plastic thing that at least is
Mm.
functions as a stand, and it's included. But why did they do that? Did they really shave off enough money to make it worth it to do
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it does seem smaller as well. I don't think it actually looks very nice either, but it looks quite cheap. Um, but it is
I've heard
smaller,
this.
which is good. I wasn't too bothered about the size of my PS5 at the previous place I was living because it was kept behind the TV. But now the TV's on the wall, so the PS5 has to be out, and it is just annoyingly big. Um, so, and I also don't have a disk drive, so I've been thinking about possibly getting myself a Slim and
Yeah.
then doing something with the old one. Um, I'm not sure yet. It's one, you know, when you always have that one thing that you're battling with yourself to buy. And I've
Oh
been
yeah.
having that battle for a few months with a PS5 Slim, so we'll see who comes out on top.
Yeah, it's you're right. It's marginally smaller. You know, they did make it. I think of it as like the sort of slim. It's not this
Mm.
revolutionary
Yeah,
reduction in size, but
yeah,
it's a new bit of hardware. And it makes sense to where now they don't have to make a digital and a disk drive version. They make one version of the PS5 going forward,
mm.
and what they manufacture is just that detachable, you know, hard
Yeah. And
drives
weird.
or
I
disk
just
drive.
actually
Sorry.
noticed because I was a bit confused about it because I'm pretty sure when I bought it, I couldn't actually see. Oh, Amazon wants me to type in jumbled letters. I'm not doing that.
Yep.
It I couldn't. I don't think I could see a digital version. So I was kind of thinking like why I couldn't remember why the removable disk drive was a thing. But yeah, you're right. They do sell a digital version. I just don't think I could see one at the time.
Yeah, it would be just like the standard, you know, version
Yeah,
of that release. But maybe they're focusing on the disk drive version that you get that's
yeah,
bundled for the 500-ish bucks.
yeah,
But it was also a sneaky way for them to raise the price on the digital because that's $50 more
yeah,
than it was at launch.
yeah, yeah. It's a little bit sneaky. And I also would have liked the disk drive to fit old digital PS5s as well because I'd have bought one 100%. If it was $80 and I could have a disk drive on my PS5 now,
And like
100% I'd buy
plug
one.
it in with a USB thing or something. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're basically buying, yeah, just a USB-C cable into like a little disk drive that you just put on the side, or just
Right.
even have just like a little box powered by USB-C. I don't know whether USB-C can like transmit Blu-ray data or not, but give it a good go, can you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because yeah, $80 for a 4K Blu-ray player essentially is pretty damn good.
That's true. And those are not cheap. Going in
No.
the chat here, DeFuzz says, don't know why they just couldn't have made the pop off sides flat. Surprised there aren't three third party flat sides. Yeah, going with the curve of the
Mm.
design. I was expecting something a bit more rectangular, kind of going to more traditional console shape, but they seems like they're keeping the curves
Yeah,
of
they've really
this.
stuck with it, haven't they?
Yeah.
Like they've really stuck with the general shape, which is surprising.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's something where as time passes, it does look uglier to me. This PS5. I guess I was more like when this thing launched, it was so radically different. I'm like, okay, you know, I'm trying to roll with it. It's something that's new. They're trying to make this, you know, Lamborghini style design.
yeah.
And as time goes, I'm just like, and I have the Xbox Series X now. It's just like
Mm,
that reminds me of actual hardware. You know, like
yeah,
some kind of digital thing that
yeah.
functions. And the PS5 is just this weird, just face
Ominous
for
thing that just
flowers.
sits in the corner of your room.
Yeah, it's strange, but it
Yeah.
seems like yeah, that's part of the identity is these curves and this weird design.
Yeah, I think it sort of eventually transcends whether something's even ugly or not. Just because you become so familiar with it. Um, because when I first bought it, I was definitely like thinking like, oh, is it ugly? Is it nice? I'm not too sure. And now I'm just like, that's just a PS5. That's just what
Yeah.
it looks like. Um, so it's funny how your kind of opinion changes over time just as you get more and more used to it, just existing and being in like the general, uh, in every way you look really. Although I still think they look weird led down. I think because I don't really see them led down very often.
Mm.
It almost seems like wrong. Um, which is a shame. 'Cause I think with all the other consoles, you always would see them in like a mixed kind of thing. I always find, and all the photos of them you'd see, they'd sort of have one led down or one. But PlayStation seemed to always stand it up.
See, I lay
Probably.
mine down.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, maybe I should start laying mine down and see it just sort of just so I can get exposure to the other way of living.
There's also apparently with the liquid metal they have on the CPU, the main CPU, when
Mm.
it's standing up, it's much more susceptible to that stuff leaking. This is apparently
Oh,
online, bro
really?
science. But yeah, laying down, it doesn't have that issue as much. I have no idea, but I remember reading that. But I just do it because it fits into
Mm.
my entertainment center that way.
Yeah.
And I also have the black fins on it too. So I just
Nice.
redid the outside. So it just like blends in where you don't really think about it. It just is there,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
more so. Awesome, Colin. Well, we got the PS5 Slim. It exists. Now, you've tried this. We got the PS Portal, a streaming device that launched in
Yes.
November for 200 bucks US. What do you think about your PS Portal?
I absolutely love it. I am just, yeah, it is one of the best things I've bought in a long, long time. Um, I get it's very specific to, some people maybe wouldn't use it, or some people maybe don't have good enough internet or reliable enough internet to make it worth it. But um, yeah, I mean, I've played so much on it. I've arguably played it more than I've played just on my PS5. Just being able to like, lie in bed playing it, or sitting in the living room whilst the TV's on, just playing it. It's really amazing bit of kit. The screen's lovely. The colors are like for an LCD screen, the colors are great. Feels really good. The only different thing is the analog sticks are, I think they're slightly thinner,
Hmm.
and they're also slightly more protruded up, I guess, to maybe protect the screen. And that took a little bit of getting used to. Like I just played Resi 4 remake to try and like a shooter heavy game to kind of get used to it. So it feels a little bit different. My only complaint is the volume. It's very loud, which is good, but it doesn't really have any quiet settings. So even on the lowest possible volume, it's super loud. And then the highest possible volume is a little bit louder than super loud. So there's not a lot of range. It's just either really, really loud or really, really, really loud, which is my main issue. And like I was saying earlier about PlayStation getting all Apple-y, it doesn't support Bluetooth.
Right. I was
So
going
if
to
you want
mention that.
wireless headphones, you have to use PlayStation Link supported headphones, which of
Yeah.
course are very expensive. Um, which I might invest in. I'm still not, because I'm trying to time it for when I need a new pair of headphones, so I can kind of
Right.
excuse the amount of money, because they are Bluetooth as well. It's just the portal doesn't have Bluetooth, so I can still use it with other devices. Um, so yeah, that's a bit of a pain because sort of paired with the volume thing. If I'm in bed, I don't want it to be too loud. But then I can't have like little inoffensive wireless headphones plugged in. And I don't really have very nice wired headphones, so it's not really an option either. So that's my only complaint. But yeah,
Does it have a wired
honestly,
headphone jack at least?
it does.
Port?
Yes, it
Oh,
does.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. It has a wired headphone jack and a USB-C port for the charging. But yeah, it's one of those things where if you're kind of on the fence and you're thinking, there's times where I wish I could just play my PlayStation portably, whether that's in bed or whether that's uh, when the TV's being used in the living room, then I cannot recommend it enough. It is amazing. And again, as long as you've got decent Wi-Fi, and decent Wi-Fi in the spots you would play it. So if you know that in your bedroom your Wi-Fi is a bit crappier, then I maybe would not recommend it unless you can sort of improve that. Um, and as long as your PS5 is wired as well, that's a really, really important thing as well. I Yeah, can't recommend it enough for people where it kind of fits in for use for them.
Yeah, I'm very interested in it, but man, if I could also string my PC and play PC games, then it would be an absolute no-brainer. But
Yeah,
that's just my only holdout is that it's really just part of that PlayStation ecosystem and there's no support for doing
yeah,
anything else with it. That's the biggest bummer to me, but it
yeah,
does look really cool.
yeah. And it's super well optimized as well for PS Remote Play, 'cause it's the only thing it does. So you're gonna get the best possible remote play experience if you've used remote play, elsewhere, whether over PC or over your phone or anything like that. It's definitely, in terms of like latency and input lag, definitely the way to go. And yeah, it's just made me play a lot more games as well, because there's so much downtime where um, you know you can't play your PlayStation. All those times you're thinking, oh, I wish I could play a PlayStation right now, but I can't. This is the thing that will let you do it.
Do you think the fact that this exists now and I assume it's doing well, because anytime you do, I'll follow these various people on Twitter that will release when there's a sale on something or when something's
Mm,
available when it comes to video game hardware and software. And anytime it does jump online, it's like it sells out. It's like they're
yeah.
either making just a few at a time or there's a big demand for it. So do you think the fact that this is doing well, is there any hope for PlayStation getting back into a legit gaming handheld?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know because it's not. It's different because this allows you to just play your PS5. So it's a seamless experience. You get to play any. You can play anything on it, obviously. Um, and yes, it'd be nice to play locally, but you'd have to think, well, are they going to release something that's going to have like games that are only on it because of the certain power of the device if they were to make one, or are they going to make it so that you can play all PS4 games?
Mm.
And then they're going to have to test all these games and optimize it for it. And so I actually do think a device like this that uses the internet to stream a more powerful device, I think that could be a pretty good future for handheld um, gaming, especially as internet improves, this technology improves. If they can manufacture a version, that use it that can connect to 5G or that can, do all these different things, then maybe it'd get even more popular. But I think having a handheld that can have this insane power via streaming is actually a pretty amazing way to look at it. Just because, as much as it's the dream to have, like a Steam Deck style device that's just for PlayStation and it can play games locally, I just don't know how likely that would be. Just because of the amount of games it would need to support, and they would need to be tested on it, and you'd need to get all like dev kits, all these studios to test these really old bloody games, and um, yeah. So I think this is actually a pretty good way to approach it.
It's true. There's less research and development, or
Mm.
testing that has to be done, because they don't, like you said, have to worry about what works and what doesn't. It's just
Yeah,
streaming through. And if you have internet,
yeah.
ammo.
And
It's
it's just one thing they would need to improve, which is a difficult thing, which is that infrastructure of how good is the quality of the streaming, the technology that streaming's running from, and how to kind of optimize it to make it possible to play on weaker Wi-Fi signals or mobile data and these things. And but then would that mean that you'd have to have like a mobile carrier with it, and get like a SIM card and all these things? It's very kind of cutting edge tech, isn't it? That in a few years' time could be exponentially better than it is now. And I just think it's a great starting point, something that works when I use it basically flawlessly. And like I said, I think it's just going to get more and more improved, which will then give it a broader sort of audience to access it as well.
and you're using one of our questions in the chat was you're wired with your PS5 and then using Wi-Fi through. So it's like that seems to be
Yes.
the preferred way to set it up, because I know when the thing launched, people had issues with the lag and whatnot. But if you're just
Yeah,
going, if your PS5's only Wi-Fi, it just adds to the delay on stuff. So you
it
have to
does.
be
Yeah,
aware.
I haven't tried it. I mean, I always wire my PS5 in anyway, just because it's always so close to the router generally. I know it can be different in different houses as well, but I mean, it's worth just getting a super long Ethernet cable, and doing a little bit DIY, maybe tacking it to a wall and just plugging it in, um, because then that means you can use your port anywhere, and it'll just be super, super, clear. Again, I've tried it in a house that isn't where the PS5 isn't, and it's perfect. The only difference is that if you're on the same Wi-Fi or the same network that your PS5's on, when you first turn it on, it does this kind of like loading thing where it's like a portal kind of starting. I mean, if you're on the same network as your PS5, it'll be instant and you're straight away in. If
Uh,
you're on a different network, you have to wait maybe 15, 20 seconds before it lets you connect. Um, Other than that, the actual latency and the quality isn't any different from what I've seen. And I did also try playing it up at my dad's in Scotland, where his Wi-Fi is a lot weaker. And I got mixed results. Sometimes it was bearable and fine, like the resolution would maybe drop from now and then. But in other areas of his house, it was pretty much unusable. So I've seen all different ways of it. But yeah, I think that it's just one of those things you have to have that ticked off before you get one, basically, is, do I have the Wi-Fi to support this? Is my PS5 hardwired in? If the answer is yes, then and you would actually use it, then absolutely get one. Again, I think it's specifically good for me because I game primarily on PlayStation. That's the kind of ecosystem that I like to play my games in. I like to use it as a way to kind of track the games I've played and, as you know, get trophies and things. So it just gives me, because otherwise I'd get something like a Steam Deck maybe. But I just don't play my games on Steam like I do on PlayStation. So it
Gotcha.
just fits me perfectly, and maybe not everyone else.
Gotcha. Nice. Yeah, I'm curious. Now, Callum, we'll leave off the 2024 possible stuff till next time.
Sure.
We'll have this as our recap for 2023.
Nice.
Quickly, your thoughts on PS5, PlayStation in 2023, if you could think of as a whole for this year. You're positive, negative. How
Um,
do you feel?
I don't know. I think it's been a year where PlayStation maybe hasn't done anything too crazy. I mean, obviously it's selling really well and doing really well, but there's nothing generally that I can really think of. Let me just scroll up, see if I've already forgotten something that's happened. Yeah, I don't think it's really made that many big, rippling moves. Spider-Man 2 was great, but again, it's quite a short-lived experience. Um, the PS5 Slim is fine. PSVR 2 is fine. All of these kinds of things are just, you know, bubbling along. But yeah, I think PlayStation Portal for me is the best thing that they've done this year. It's just allowed me to play, or it's made me want to play PlayStation and lots of different kinds of games more. So that I'm really pleased with. But other than that, yeah, we'll sort of see. We don't have that many announcements really for first party
We
studios,
don't.
so we'll see what happens as the year goes. But yeah, I think a fairly uneventful year for PlayStation specifically, but also maybe because it was just such a big year in terms of the volume of games we got, that maybe overshadowed anything that they did do. Especially Spider-Man 2, I feel was maybe more overshadowed than it would have been had it not been surrounded by all these other amazing games.
Right. And yeah, it's another year of them, Sony really focusing on third party support and kind of just making it so that as a gamer, your place to go play them is on PlayStation, and
Yeah.
then their few first party bangers coming out. It looks like 2024 is going to kind of be like that, unless there's some juggernaut announcements that launch in 2024 and that are also announced in 2024. I
Mm.
think they're going to lean on third party. Like, but I think of Alan Wake 2, which I loved. I played that on PlayStation. Really, any other title that was uh, um, cross consoles. I played it on PS5, so I think I'll just stick there, and they're gonna lean on that going into next year.
Mm. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, Callum. Well, another podcast in the books. After 2 years, we're finally back.
Yes. Yeah, if I could reach over and shake your hand, I would, but
Yes.
we're not there yet. We're not there yet with technology, but we
No,
will.
but
We
one
will.
day,
We'll get there.
one day we could do a whole lot more if we really.
I'll stream your hand into existence and shake it over my very fast internet.
All right, that's a lame joke, Callum. It's a lame joke.
Hey,
All
I'm
right.
in IT. That's the
Yeah,
kind of jokes you're gonna get.
that's the best. All right, Callum, we'll end it there for this episode. You can find us on Twitter at Plastic Heart Pod. Callum, if you'll tell the ladies and gentlemen good night.
Have a very lovely and good night, everybody.
You're too late. I've already summoned Meteor.
Okay, let's go.